Good night, and I'm going to try to speak in English. I'll see if I remember something. And thank you for being here and for your support for our cause. No? I'm going to be talking about the updating, or what we're calling the actualización del modelo económico. And I know there are many concerns about what we're doing in Cuba in terms of economic reform or economic changes. And I think we have to start from recognizing that, yes, the Cuban society has accomplished many important advances in terms of social and cultural aspects, but in terms of economics, we still need a lot of work to do, and this reality has been made more evident after 2008 with all the hurricanes and the international crisis, when it was imperative to make our economy function so that these social and cultural advances can be sustained. No? And so that's the challenge that we have, and that's why we have to understand that measures that are being taken in Cuba that could be seen as similar to those part of adjustment programs in other countries have a different background, different roots, they're type from different situations that need to be addressed for the sustainability of our revolution, no? And so, I'm sure you know that in 2008 we had 3 major hurricanes, 10 billion in damages. That's a significant percent of our gross domestic product. So we faced, for the first time in a long time, a fiscal deficit of more than 6%, and also for the first time in a long time, a commercial deficit. And Cuba doesn't have access to international financial institutions. Cuba couldn't do what we did in the 90s, when a lot of the cost of the adjustment was shared among the population, and the living, the real wages of the Cuban decreased significantly. It was shared among Cubans, but that could not be done again, so we had to freeze foreign businesses' accounts, and that damaged the functioning of our economy. So the good news that I can give you so far is that thanks to the measures that have been taken, all the foreign business accounts have been defrozen. I don't know how you say this, but yeah. Or now they can have access to and so they can function. And this is very important for the Cuban economy, because, as I mentioned, we don't have access to international credit, so we depend on what these foreign businesses can do in Cuba. And also, the fiscal deficits have been reduced to around 2%, which is not bad. And we have been able to grow not as much as we need, but around 2% too, is estimated. So the main measures that have been taken to come out of this crisis, on top of the crisis that we had from the 90s that we haven't really overcome yet, have been we had to cut imports because we didn't have money to keep importing, and that damaged also our ability to grow because we depend on imports to grow, but it was not possible to keep importing, and that's why one of the measures or the policies that are being promoted are to support those activities that substitute imports, and that's why food production is so important. No? And also, something that is hard to understand, especially in the US, when you are all protesting against spending cuts, but in Cuba, more than 60%, I think it's more than 80% of our GDP is spent on health and education. So we have to rationalize those spending because it's not sustainable for our society. And so the health and education sectors have been going through changes to rationalize spending, also in terms of the quantity of people who work there. So, and also more control on how material resources are spent or utilized. And there has been a reduction in spending. The idea is not to cut the quality of the services, but to make them, to raise the quality. But now there are studies are being conducted to evaluate the impact of these measures, no? Because some people complain we're used to having like doctors very close to our home and be there all the time and be able to do things that sometimes now is not available. So a part of the population is not happy about this, but the idea is that we're going to correct. The idea is not to reduce the quality or the access. The idea is to make it better and more efficient. So we are like correcting as we go, no? And so that's another part of the state sector that needs to be perfected to state enterprises, not just the one that provides services. It's estimated that between 30 and 50% of workers in state enterprises are redundant, the enterprise could do their business without them in many ways. So that makes the task of raising wages very hard, because to raise wages, you need an economy like ours needs to raise productivity. And it's hard when you have workers who, because we don't have the ability to invest and increase capacity, these workers should be relocated to other activities where they can be productive. And so that's something that is happening in the state enterprise business sector, and that's why we're promoting the non-state enterprises that are comprised by private and cooperatives, private enterprises and cooperatives. So, I'm sorry. So, what the idea is to increase the participation of the non-state sector from now is around 15% of the total employment to around 35% employment by 2015. And so far what we have seen is a promotion of the trabajadores por cuenta propia, or not just self-employment, because now they can hire also workers. And so it's self-employment and private business, small private businesses. They have increased from around 150,000 in 2010, before the measures where the new regulations came out in November 2010, to approximately 380,000 trabajadores por cuenta propia just recently. So it's more than double. And if you go to Cuba now, you can see a lot of private businesses on the streets, many more private taxis, private coffee shops, and etc. People selling goods on the streets too. And the good thing about this is that more than 67% of these people seem to be people, well, not all of them, but 68% of them didn't have a formal employment before. So it's estimated that a big part of them were doing these activities illegally. So it has been a way to legalize these activities and for the state to receive funding through taxes. These people now also have access to Social Security benefits because it's mandatory for them to contribute, and that way they can benefit from that. That's the difference between small enterprises in other countries and small enterprises in Cuba, no? The ones that are being promoted now. So the contribution of these businesses to the budget through taxes has more than tripled, no? So Cuba, through these measures that for some people could be seen as Cuba is promoting the private sector and is promoting privatization, we have to understand that we are just talking about increasing from 15% to 35%, when most society, the private sector, even in former socialist societies, the private sector was around that amount. So we went a little to the extreme, no? So now we are in a more balanced economy, or that's the idea, to have an economy where the state enterprise takes care of the most important strategic fundamental activities, and we have to acknowledge that there's going to be a private sector for small, small services and small activities that don't make sense to have a state controlling and spending resources on that. And something that is exciting, and I think is going to strengthen our socialism, our socialist model, is that important part of this non-state sector is the cooperative sector that we're just starting to promote now. In March 31st, a policy for the non-agricultural cooperatives was approved, and we are expecting that in the next months a law that would allow for the creation of this cooperative is going to be passed. So I think for those who worry about what's going to happen, are we promoting the private sector and not other more socialized kind of activities, I think we're going to see a room for these kind of enterprises to grow, and according to what the policymakers have said, they're going to receive preferential treatment in terms of access to credit, in terms of taxes. So the idea is that they're going to be an important part of the non-state sector that we're promoting now. Well, I could talk about what is being done also in the state enterprise sector, because that's is going to continue being the most important part of the enterprise sector in Cuba, but still a lot needs to be done. We're just starting to think through again what a state enterprise should be, so it's really socialized, it's really controlled by the workers and society. But some measures have been taken, as Juan Luis had mentioned, and the idea is, just to close my presentation here, is that, as I started saying, that the changes that we're doing in our economic model have the goal of making our social model, our society, sustainable. And I think the good thing is that, because this is a very difficult task to combine the need for economic efficiency and efficacy with our social goals, no? but it's something that I think we can accomplish because the way we're doing it is through slow steps and evaluating the results of the measures that are taken to correct and make the measures better, and with the participation of the people, making sure that the measures that are taken don't affect the interests of the minority. So I'm hopeful. There's a lot of work to be done, as I started mentioning, but I think we're on a good path and it's necessary.